What is up, you guys? Welcome to Illumination Lab. My name is Justin, and today we'll be getting into episode 2 of Resculpted. In this series, we'll take a scene, image, or product and try to recreate it within Cinema4D and Redshift. Some recreations will be similar, where others will fall short, but the goal is to see exactly how close we can get it. I'm excited for this one. This is going to be a fun one today, so without further delay, let's get into it. Alright, so jumping into the sculpture here, I decided to choose this one just because it is a little different as far as the colors go. I thought what was nice about this is it was rather simple, but we have a lot of really great stuff going on here. So what I like about this is you have some of the light coming out from the left side here, and then at the bottom of the image here, more in the foreground and the parts of the background here, we have these really strong shadows. And so you see a lot of these shadows both in the foreground and in the background that's kind of highlighting the tub a little bit more. So that's really encouraging the viewer to kind of focus on the tub a little bit more. Another reason why I decided to go with this one is it has a really funky looking mirror, and so I thought it would be kind of interesting to try to recreate that within Cinema 4D. I feel like setting up mirrors can be difficult just because you do have to make the actual scene itself, and then you have to make another stage behind the camera, and so I just thought that would be kind of interesting to play with here. And then we do have some vegetation here on the left on this table, and so this one's going to be rather simple, but I decided to do it just because of the type of style it has and just the challenge that comes with setting up a mirror like this. So but that's pretty much it for our sculpture here. We're calling it the retro bathroom. Let's hop into Cinema 4D and start the modeling process. Alright, so jumping into Cinema 4D, of course, like always, we have to set up our scene here. So I'm just going to bring in a curve and then just kind of adjust this here, and then rotate the camera, and then really just try to get into proper perspective. And with this too, while I'm doing this, I have our sculpture up here just to make sure that we are getting the correct perspective. Next, I'm going to throw in a Redshift camera, and that is going to kind of hold our perspective for us while we hop around the scene here. And in this one, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into Grayscale Gorilla, and we're going to find some pretty cool colors here. Normally we start the modeling process, but with this one, let's try and find a few different colors that kind of match our reference here, and then we'll kind of get into the modeling process. So as you saw, I grabbed a cool looking carpet texture here, and then now I'm just looking for some of these wall colors here. And so we'll grab this yellow here. This one looks pretty good, and then we'll snag this orange color as well. And then we'll bring in this one. Now let me actually just move this over real quick, and let me bring this up so you can actually see what colors we're pulling in here. And then we're gonna search for this blue here, and so we'll just bring in a couple of these different colors here just because we're going to try and see exactly what this is going to be looking like when we apply the colors to our surfaces here. And so we'll have a couple backups. And then this blue tile here is looking real close to our sculpture here, and so we're just going to bring that in as well. And yeah, that looks pretty good so far. So we'll just hop into the modeling process here. All right, so I'm just going to bring in a cube here and I will rotate this. And then I'm just going to shrink this down and place it against our wall here. And then this will be the start of our tile section here. And then I'll just kind of widen that out and kind of fit it to the wall here. All right, so I'm just going to copy and paste our cube here and then just rotate it for our other wall here, and then just kind of adjust it to the wall and then bring this over. And then I'm just going to kind of push these to the corner here and make sure they're kind of flush to the wall there. Cool. So I'm just going to copy and paste again, bring this over, and then this is going to be our other side of the wall. And then we'll start to work on the window here and the rest of the wall here. So, and with this too, since we are putting tile on it, I am increasing our segments here just so when we do put our tile, it is looking quite nice here. Again, I'm just going to copy and paste and then move this up here. And so I'm just establishing a wall real quick, and then we will eventually delete our curve just because we kind of use that as a nice placeholder. Now I'm just going to shrink down our cube here and then just bring this over to the side. And with this, I'm going to color each section depending on our sculpture here. And so I'll have multiple cubes representing the wall, and we'll use that just to kind of separate the colors here. And then I'll just make this smaller cube here. And then again, copy and paste it just to make it a little easier. And then bring this to our other wall here. And then I'm just going to kind of adjust the scale here. Just bring that in a little bit more here. Cool. So that's looking pretty good so far. Next up, I'm going to copy and paste. Bring this over. And then just shrink this down a little bit. And so if you see in our reference here, there is a small little portion that is a wall here before the window. And so we're just going to recreate that here. And again, just kind of adjusting it, making sure it's nice and flush against our walls here. And then I'm just going to turn off our curve, bring in another cube, adjust it and bring it down. And then this is going to be our floor. And I'm just going to rename that real quick. And I know I am absolutely horrible about naming each one, but I definitely have to get into a habit of just organizing my object manager here just to make sure that I really don't get lost within the scene here. So as you saw, I copy and paste and use that as our ceiling here. Next step, what I'm going to do is bring in a cylinder, and we're just going to cut that in half here. And then I'm just going to go to our display and change our display settings just so we can kind of see it a little bit better. Now I'm going to copy and paste and then just increase that size here and then just bring that down. So we have two similar shapes, and then this smaller cylinder is going to end up being the window here. And now I'm just going to kind of adjust these segments here. And then I'm just going to bring in a bool and then just kind of create that shape. And then just increase those segments just to kind of round out those edges here. All right, so next up, I'm going to bring in a cube here and just adjust the size to our window here. And then same thing, just bring in another cube and then just kind of shrink this down a little bit. And then we're just going to do the same process with our bowl here. But first, I'm just trying to really adjust this to make sure that it is looking good. And just adjust this slightly, and there it goes. So, and then I'm just going to kind of adjust it here and make sure that it is looking good. And yeah, so we have the back ends completely out here, so this is looking good. Next up, I'm going to bring in a cube, and I'm just going to set this cube out about here, and then copy and paste this and bring this down, and about there is looking good. And then I'm just going to rotate this 90 degrees and then just kind of extend the size. And there we go. Cool. So we have our window set up here, and it's looking pretty good. I'm just going to bring in a null, type in window, and we're just going to put all of those pieces into our window null here, just so we have them for later, just in case we need to go back and readjust anything. We can kind of quickly find it. So, but before I do that, what we need to do is just kind of shrink down the size a little bit, just so it's not so extended out. And so I'm just going to take all these shapes and kind of readjust the size here. That looks a little bit more realistic there, and a little bit more proportionally correct versus what we had. And then, but yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm just going to grab it and rotate this, and then just kind of bring this up, rotate it again, and then we'll just put it in kind of the correct area here. And then I'm just going to increase the size slightly and then just kind of bring this over. Let me just adjust that real quick. Cool. And that looks pretty good so far. Next up, I'm just going to copy and paste again this cube, and then just bring this over, and then this will be the rest of our wall here. And then I'm just trying to line this up. And one of the reasons why I'm trying to line this up is with bringing in some lighting through the window to make sure that we have complete control of our lighting. I want to make sure that there's no opportunity for light to creep in on the other side of the scene. Sometimes if you have a specific perspective, but you're not necessarily working in that area, or the camera doesn't show it, sometimes you can kind of leave it be to kind of save on space or just rendering time. But really, we're just trying to control our lighting, and so by blocking it, that's going to kind of allow us to prevent the spread of light in certain areas. And so we're just going to kind of set that up real quick, knowing that we're going to kind of try to recreate some sort of light coming through this window. Next up, I'm just going to copy and paste and put this on the top side here. Now this spot is going to be kind of tricky. You could do this a few different ways. First, I'm going to set up a bowl between this shape and our cube, just to kind of carve out that edge here. And then what we're going to do is just kind of make this cube editable, and then we're going to end up deleting a lot of this. So, but first, what I'm going to do is just increase the segments here just so it is a little bit cleaner when we cut this up. Now I'm just going to kind of highlight these and just work my way around this curve here. And then across the bottom here, and then I'm just going to kind of color that in here. And hit delete, and then we're just going to do the same process. Go all around here. Fill this in. And then hit delete. Now we have a lot of these kind of floating around, so we're just going to select these and delete these. And then same with these around this curve here. Just highlight all of this and delete. Cool. And then some of these here at the end. And that looks pretty good. I do see the one at the very back there, but it's kind of out of the scene, so that's completely fine. We're just not going to see that at all. Cool. And then I'm just going to adjust this wall here. And then let me see here. Let me just put some of this into our window null. So when I adjust it, it's going to be correct here. And I'm just kind of moving this down. And then the same thing with this cube. I'm just going to bring this down a little bit. And then this one's probably going to be a little tough here, trying to figure out how to do this properly. So I'm just going to kind of adjust this here. And then we do have that gap. So let me just adjust the ceiling a little bit. And then move this over. And really with this, we're just kind of cleaning up the scene, making sure that everything is touching and nothing's kind of floating in space randomly. We're going to give it a quick save. Next up, I'm going to bring in the Redshift render view and hop into our perspective. And really, I'm just going to kind of adjust our camera here. And really with this, I'm just looking at our reference and trying to adjust it. I'm just going to go into our Redshift settings here and go to 2K here and just kind of adjust this. Just because in our reference, we do have a bit of a longer scene here. And so I'm just going to use that 2K as a way to kind of get the entire scene here. And again, just kind of readjusting this depending on what I see here. Cool. So I'm just going to hop back into our regular camera, give it a quick save, and then I'm just going to bring in a area light here and rotate this. I'm just going to adjust our intensity. And then if you could see in the reference, we do have a bit of a warmer color coming in. So I'm just going to bring in a kind of a yellow tinge to our light here. And then next I'm going to bring in a spotlight. And then I'm just going to adjust the cone angle here. And with this, again, I'm just trying to recreate that really cool highlight that we have that's going against the tile and the back wall here. And so really with this, making sure that we get the right angle of the light and then just kind of changing the cone angle is going to really help recreate that cool highlight here. So cool. So this highlight looks good for now. Of course, we'll go back in and adjust it just because it's going to look different depending on what colors we bring in here. So this is going to be good for now. Next up, I'm going to bring in our tile color here, and we're just going to apply it to our cube. Cool. So that looks good as far as the color goes. Let me adjust the length here. And really with adjusting these lengths, we can kind of control how many tiles we have. And so I'm just trying to kind of recreate the same tile length and size here just to make it look a little bit more to our sculpture here. And so cool. So that looks a little bit better here. I'm just going to kind of adjust it here slightly. And that looks pretty good, so we'll just kind of leave that there. Next up, we're going to work on the floor. So I'm just going to bring in this color here and apply it to our floor. And then same thing, I'm just going to adjust the UV length here just to get it a little bit more into scale. And then I'm just going to start applying some of these colors here. Let me see what this other orange looks like. And then same here. And then let me apply this yellow. And then let me try this one instead. Let me actually bring in a area light just to kind of see a little bit more of what we're looking at. Since it is so dark, it is kind of hard to see exactly what these colors look like. So I'm just going to bring in that area light here and then just give it a little warm hue here. And then I'm just gonna go over and make this area light visible. I'm just going to copy and paste, rotate this. And then just bring this over. And then just increase the height there. So that is kind of creating that white light that is coming out of the window. And so if we kind of look at our reference here, that is somewhat similar to what we have. We really can't see anything on the outside, but just a big light source here. So that will be good to kind of help recreate that here. Give it a quick save again, and then I'm just going to go into our grayscale gorilla, and then we're just going to find another yellow here. And let's try this one out here. And let's try this one out here to see what this one looks like. And we'll just apply it to our wall. And that looks a little bit better here. And as I'm looking at the reference, our wall is a little too big for our orange here. So I'm just going to increase the scale of our yellow and kind of bring that orange back there. So that is looking a little bit better. And then if you look at the reference in the corner here, there's a really strong dark shadow. And so to help recreate that, what I'm going to do is just move this wall here, and that's going to create that strong shadow that you see within the reference here. So next up, I'm going to bring in a cylinder and then just shrink this down. And then I'm just going to rotate this here. And then this is going to be kind of the foundation of this funky looking light that we have here. So I'm just going to kind of adjust the scale and then make sure that this is flush against the wall here. And then I'm just going to apply that same orange color here. And then next, I'm just going to copy and paste, move this one over here. And then I'm going to bring in another cylinder here and then just bring this over to the left side. And this is going to be the start of our tabletop here. And then just copy and paste and bring this down here and just elongate that out. And that's just going to be one of the legs of the table here. And then as I'm doing this, I am looking at our reference here. And so I'm just trying to make sure that we both have scaling, and then we also have just kind of the right look in general. And so I feel like that process kind of takes up a lot of time, but it's a part of it. And so next up, I'm going to bring in another cylinder here, and then with this, it is tapered a little bit, so we're just going to do that, bring in a taper, and then adjust the strength to our cylinder. And then we're just going to kind of play around with this. And I'm just going to grab this cylinder, copy and paste, rotate this, and then bring this up a bit. And so if you're looking at the reference, it is a little bit thicker both at the bottom and the top portion. And so by creating a taper, copy and pasting, and making kind of like two versions of it, we're recreating that shape there. So now I'm just going to bring in another cube here and just apply this to our table. And so it looks like there is some sort of book on this table. And so we're just trying to recreate that. Sometimes with a lot of these images that we're working with, it is somewhat kind of difficult to figure out what exactly is going on in the scene. And so I try to zoom in and see if there is the same image but in a few different angles, just to make sure that we are getting the proper perspective and the right items in the scene. But it seems like for this one, it is just this angle. And so we're going to try to recreate what we can see, but I wish that, I could see a little bit better, just so we could kind of represent it a little bit more to what it is. So next up, I'm going to bring in this wood here that we got from Grayscale Gorilla. And that's a pretty good color to our reference here. So that's looking pretty good so far. Of course, we'll come back and play around with this later. Next up, what I'm going to do is adjust this area light here. And as you can see, as I'm adjusting it, it does affect both the lighting and the shadows here. And so I want to try to recreate the shadows that is in the foreground in our reference here. And so I'm just going to take a few of our items here and exclude them from our light here. And so as I put in the tile as our exclude list, it does make the scene a little bit darker, so that is nice. Hopping into Redshift, I am bringing in a tub. Of course, we could try to recreate this, but I think for this one, I'm going to cheat a little bit and bring in a tub. And then I'm just going to kind of edit the tub a little bit. We're going to take the legs off. And then really just adjust the scale here and kind of bring this in and back. And then again, just readjust the scale and bring this down. Now, since this is the focal point, it is going to be really important that we make sure to nail this a little bit. So I really want to make sure that our tub is in its correct proportions and we have everything set up appropriately. Next up, we're going to try and play with our area light a little bit more. And then with this, I really can't see it that well. And I think what's going on is, since our light is visible here, it can't penetrate through this light. So actually what I'm going to do is just bring back our area light here and just kind of bring this color down a little bit. And then I'm just going to kind of turn off these lights just to kind of highlight this specific spotlight we have. And then again, we're just going to kind of readjust this to make sure that we could try and get the same highlight shape here. And then I'm just going to take this area light, and what's cool with this area light is we can kind of help control this a little bit more. And actually I'm gonna rotate this to kind of give that curve there. And we actually made this kind of uniquely here by adjusting another light to control the shape of this light. So I've haven't done that before, but that's pretty cool there. So we're just gonna play with this here and see what kind of angle we can get. And then same with this one here. And then I'm just going to bring down this book here and apply this. I keep saying book, but I think maybe it's just something that you put on the table, but just because it is a very like almost like a dark brown or just wood color, and so maybe it's a block of some sort. So we'll just keep that there. Hopping into the Redshift library here, we're going to bring in this towel here. I'm just going to rotate this towel and then just kind of adjust it to our tub here. Cool. So next up, what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a landscape here. And with this landscape, we're just going to kind of adjust it to create this mirror. Now, this is one way of doing it. We actually end up doing this a slightly different way at the ends, but this is what I came up with in the moment. And so what I'm going to do is just adjust this landscape here. And then what I'm going to do is just bring this all the way down to 0. And then just kind of go throughout the seed here. So with this, I'm just trying to recreate some sort of a unique or sort of abstract mirror here, but this is kind of a quick way to kind of create some sort of blob shape, and then we can kind of cycle through our seeds here and see what works best for us. So I think we'll just stick with this shape here, and then we'll always just kind of come back and readdress it. Sometimes what I like to do is just put up something as a placeholder, and then I can kind of jump in between the scene here as far as all of the different characters here. Next up, I'm going to bring in a sphere, and we're going to kind of recreate some of these lights here. Now I'm going to bring in our sphere over to the wall here, and then just kind of adjust it here. And then I'm just going to copy and paste, bring this down. And then it's about here. And then let me just adjust the scale slightly. But again, like our book on the table, it's kind of hard to see what is really going on here. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of adjust it here. It really doesn't make sense as far as what we're doing in the scene, but we're just trying to recreate that image here. And then it does have somewhat of a yellow tinge to it, and so actually using the fabric from the towel would be kind of smart, just because it creates that yellow roughness here. Next up, I'm going to go into the Redshift library here, and we're just going to scroll down here to some of the colors. And then we're just going to grab one of these mirrors, and then I'm going to save it real quick. And then just take this mirror and apply it to our landscape. And so that kind of gives us that mirror look. And then it's going to look black because we have nothing in the background here. So we're going to work on that here real quick. So I'm going to bring in this cylinder, and I'm just going to kind of adjust it to the back of our scene here. And then I'm just going to bring in this cube here. We're essentially establishing the back wall here, and so I'm just playing around with it just to see what kind of looks we can get in the mirror. Now I'm just going to delete that completely here. And then what I'm going to do is actually jump into Grayscale Gorilla. They do have a lot of different cloud images here. And so for our mirror, what we're going to do is just rotate our cloud here, and then just adjust the scale. And the bottom of the cloud is going to help us kind of recreate cool looking symmetrical mirror here. And so we get the blob or the kind of abstract look here with the cloud, but we can kind of achieve that quite easily. Of course, you could do this many different ways, but I feel like this is probably the quickest or most efficient way of going about it. So I'm just going to adjust this cloud to our wall here. And then I'm just going to apply our mirror texture here. And then I'm just going to adjust the scale. And then I'm just trying to line it up similar to our reference here, where it is somewhat near the bottom and kind of near the orange area here. So, and then of course, adjusting some of this lighting here. What I'm going to do is actually bring in our cloud here as an exclude. And so we just don't have that bright highlight on the mirror. And then we still have somewhat of a dark foreground, and then in our corners have like a nice contrast versus some of our highlights here. So that is looking pretty good. What I'm going to do is just bring in another area light. I'm just going to rotate that. And then I'm just going to bring this over to our wall here and then just adjust it to our wall so our wall's a little bit brighter, but not too bright here. We're just gonna bring that down. And then I'm just going to adjust this cylinder here. And then our cylinder is more in the middle, so we're just going to adjust for that. And then same with our lights. I'm just trying to adjust it here. Maybe doing the whole thing would be a little bit better so we don't have one specific highlight here. And we'll just bring this down. There we go. So that's a little bit better here. Now I'm just going to copy and paste our cube and bring this back. And then I'm just going to put it right behind the camera, and then we're just going to take off our orange color here. And then just kind of adjust this to the mirror. And then same thing with this area lights. I'm just going to adjust it to make sure that there is a good amount of lights, but we're not causing any sort of major highlights or major shadows at all. So a lot of times with this though, with this series of trying to recreate something, it is very tedious, like I said before, of trying to kind of recreate the same thing. So there's a lot of tweaking going on. So but yeah, it's a lot of just minor adjustments to make sure that we're representing it correctly here. So cool. So everything is coming together quite nicely here. We have a good foundation going on, and really we're just trying to adjust for the lighting here. And then we're just going to adjust the tub, just because in the reference we do have a very strong shadow at the bottom of the tub. So technically this is hovering off of the ground, but we are achieving a very dark shadow here. I'm curious if this original image went through, well, I'm sure it did, went through a lot of different post editing, but the major contrast probably tells us that it did go through a lot of editing. But to kind of recreate that, we have to kind of do that ourselves with some of these unrealistic edits here, just because it seems a little bit more stylized. And then we're just going to kind of readjust some of our lights here. And really with this one, I feel like the lighting has a big impact into the overall look and vibe of the image. And so That's why with this, we're concentrating so much with the lighting, just because the image itself is, it's rather simple, but you know, the small details is what is going to kind of help us achieve a similar look to this. So we'll just continue adjusting some of this lighting just to see what we can do, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so next up, I'm going into Redshift here, and we're going to try and find some flowers that is similar to our reference here. And I'm just going to type in plant here. And then we have a lot of different options here for our plants. And then I'm just going to kind of scroll down here and try and find something similar to our orange flowers that we have here. And so let's see. So this one here is probably the best, especially since it's around the same shape as well too. So we'll just snag this here, bring this up, and then just adjust it to our table here. And then let me just take this out here, take this one. Cool. So that kind of allows us to kind of move around the scene a little easier there. And then I'm just going to adjust our towel. And then I'm going to copy and paste here. Just because in the reference we do have a bit of a longer towel. And so we're just trying to recreate that here by grabbing two of these here and then kind of adjusting this. Cool, so that looks a little bit better. It's not exact, but it's definitely better than what we had before, so that's always a big plus here. And then what we'll do here is just adjust the wall here, just because it isn't that wide as far as our scene goes. And so I'm just adjusting it to the wall here. And yeah, that's a little bit better just because our reference is a little bit more narrow. And so instead of having a symmetrical cube, we're just gonna push that in a little bit more. And yeah, that looks a lot better here. So and then I'm just going to push this over a little bit more just because our window is a little bit higher in the scene here. And so I'm just going to grab our window and just readjust this. Of course, what is time consuming about this is we're not just adjusting the window, but we have to adjust for other things as well now that we move this. And so, but yeah, it's a part of the process and kind of creates a fun little puzzle. So we're just going to adjust for that window and then adjust this wall here. And then just make sure that this wall is kind of flush against this window sill here. And cool, that's looking pretty good. Let me jump into our 2K output here, and then that's gonna give us kind of our full scene here. And then in the Redshift render view, you can see that it's kind of poking out a little bit. So we're just going to adjust for that here. And then just adjust this light so we're not seeing that clip at the top. Cool. So looking at the scene, it looks a little bit better here. Let's see. I'm just looking over at the reference here. Okay, so next up, I'm going to bring in a cylinder. Actually, I'm going to bring this down for now and then bring in the cylinders. And it looks like there's some candles here, some orange candles. And so I'm just going to try and recreate that. Again, we necessarily don't know really what's going on over here, but we're gonna give it our best shot here. So again, I'm just adjusting this cylinder to our table here. And then just copy and paste and move this one over. And then copy and paste again. And then what we'll do is bring this cylinder over, and then what we'll do is make a vase out of this. And so I'm just going to increase the base here. And then I'm just going to copy and paste and bring this up. And then we're just going to bring in a taper, fit the parent, and then just kind of narrow this out here, just so it has a nice curvature going upwards here. Next up, I'm going to jump into Grayscale Gorilla, and we're going to look for a nice silver color here, just because at the bottom of our vase we have this nice little silver ring around it, and so we're just recreating that. Then we're going to jump into Redshift here. We're going to scroll all the way down to some of our colors here. And then actually a liquid would be nice, just to kind of create that nice looking brown glass color that we have. And then we're actually going to bring in a glass as well. And then I'm just going to copy and paste and then shrink this down, and then just apply the glass to our larger cylinder and then our liquid to the smaller one. And so that's going to kind of create that nice glass brown look that we have in our reference. So we'll just kind of adjust it. Cool. And then I'm just going to apply this orange to our candles, I guess. And then let's see here. So what we're going to do is we're going to cheat a little bit. We're going to bring in some sort of faucet here. I'm just going to bring in one of these. Rotate this and bring this to the back. And then I'm just going to copy and paste this. And then same thing, copy and paste and bring this in the middle. Now I'm going to bring in a cylinder. We're just going to adjust the size and then rotate this. And this is going to be the bar that's kind of going in between this little faucet here. And so we'll just kind of shrink this down here. And then really, I'm just going in, making sure that it is a good size, and we're just kind of adjusting it here. I'm just going to copy and paste again, rotate this, bring this up. And then I'm just going to bring in a bin deformer, fit the parent, and then increase the rotation segment so we get a nice curve to this. And then we're just going to rotate this. And then we're just going to take the color off of there and then just adjust the size. And then just kind of go back in and adjust the strength here. And then I'm just going to kind of bring this down here, just to make sure that this is a little bit more to scale. And then this is actually a little bit more to the right, so we'll just adjust for that. Now I'm just going to go back into Grayscale Gorilla here, and we're going to look for a nice looking gold here. And so this polished gold will look pretty nice here. And then let's see. This one's another good one, so we'll just bring this in too. And then I'm just going to apply this color to our faucet here. And yeah, that's looking pretty good here. I think that is actually very close to our reference here as far as the color goes. And then we're just going to kind of adjust the size and exactly where it's at as well too. And then of course adjust the strength and bring this down. And then we're just going to kind of jump back in to our spotlight here and then just kind of readjust this Since we did move our window here, we're gonna have to adjust for that here. And then let me just add a warmer tone to this. That is looking pretty good there. Same with this one. Let me add in a slightly warmer tone. Yeah, that's a little too warm. But let's see here. Just going to increase the intensity a little bit and kind of bring this down here. Yeah, that looks a little better. So we have a hint of that warm light, but the scene itself isn't entirely warm. So that is good here. And then of course we're going to go and adjust the cone a little bit. And then of course changing the fall off here will kind of affect how the light is interacting in our piece. Just kind of playing around with our cone angle and the exposure a little bit. And actually this kind of has like a odd curve to the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is just bring in a cube here, bring this over, shrink this down, and put this in front of the light here. And then that's going to create that nice little edge that we have at the end of this light here. And so, of course, I'm just playing around with these cubes here to try and recreate it the best I can here. All right, so now I'm just going to jump back in to our 2K output here. And then I'm just going to go over to our LUT section. And then just adjust for this LUT here. And we have a lot of different options here when it comes to this LUT. And with this, I'm just trying to see if we can grab anything that is similar to what we have going on here. A lot of these colors are kind of muted a little bit, so I think actually what we'll do is just, let me see. Yeah, a lot of these aren't exactly what we're looking for here. I think what we're doing already is pretty good here, but I was just seeing if any of these LUTs here can kind of assist us with our colors here. actually, this one here is actually pretty good. We can kind of adjust for it, but that one's not bad here, especially since it really does kind of help out with the darker tones here. And so that one's not bad. We'll kind of use that for now. And then, like I said, we can always go back and adjust it. But I think that looks a little bit better, or to our reference, versus what we had. And then, but yeah, we'll just use that for now and see what happens later on here. So okay, so next up, I'm going to go into Redshift again, and then just bring in one of these plants here. And then with this plant, we're just going to put this plant in the back. In the reference, we do have a plant of some sort. So with this, we're just trying to recreate that. This is necessarily not the same plant that we have in the reference, but it is somewhat similar here. So I'm just going to kind of put this in the back here near the pole, and then we're just going to adjust for this here. And then kind of bring this down a little bit. And then just increase the size. And then this is a little too much, so we'll just kind of push this back to make it a little bit more subtle here. And then I'm just going to adjust our intensity here, just to kind of play with our lighting. And then actually with this, I think it's going to look a little bit better if we just leave this out. Even though we do have a plant, it is just kind of just not going with the scene very well. And so I would rather have it out versus having something in that just kind of just makes it look weird in general. So next up, I'm just going to adjust some of these lights here and really just make sure that these are looking good. And then I'm just going to bring in a cylinder here and then just kind of set this up here so it is actually connected to the shape, which we do see in the reference, but yeah, that looks pretty good here, just because we do see a hint of that cylinder that is connecting to our light here. So that is looking pretty good. And then I'll just kind of adjust the tub here. So, and then we're getting to the end of this scene here. And so what I'm doing now is just going in and just adjusting some of the scale and adjusting some of the positions to make sure that this is looking as close as possible to our sculpture here. So I'll just take the next couple seconds here just to kind of readjust some of this. And then what we'll do is we'll hop into the wrap up section and kind of go over this a little bit and kind of show some of our renders and then also our actual reference as well too. So All right, so I'm just going to make a couple more adjustments, but that's pretty much it. Let's hop into the wrap up section and finish this thing off. All right, so hopping into the wrap up portion, these are the two renders that we have. Of course, with this Resculpted series, we really only get 2 shots with this, so we get 2 renders. This is what I came up with, and so obviously here at the very right, you can see the original one, the retro bathroom, I'm calling it. And then we have our render 1 and render 2. Starting with render 1, this is a little too wide when it comes to our reference here. And so I feel like we got the overall concept right. However, there's a lot more floor space and wall space than intended. And so we have that. If you do look up towards the window, something happened here. We have this kind of like this dark spot here that kind of went through here, so we have that kind of sticking out here. And then what I did not realize in render 1 is I still had that towel texture on the lights here, so that middle one kind of sticks out a little bit more. And then looking at the mirror here in the middle, it seems like it really couldn't calculate out the mirror correctly. And so we do have this warp of our pole that we made here in the middle. And so that one's kind of just a little off here versus our reference. And then of course we don't have that plant as we explained. And then there is some detail kind of missing in the table here on the left. And you really can't see the colors or images that well. So that is render 1. Render 2 is going to be a little bit better here. We have some better lights going on with our flowers here. We could kind of see a little bit better what's on the table. And then of course with our lighting, we kind of fixed the lighting a little bit here compared to our reference. We do have somewhat of a stronger shadow and highlights here. I will say we don't have as much floor, and then we did bring in the wall here, so it's a little bit more narrow. It's not as narrow as our retro bath here, but it's a little bit more narrow to what we had it originally. And so I wanted to make sure that I fixed some of these things in render 2. And then what I did notice by zooming into our retro bathroom is it looks like there is some sort of plant outside of the window here. And then of course the window has a little bit more detail where we kind of stuck to our original like rough draft image here. And so if I was to go back, I would edit this window a little bit more just to make sure that there is a little bit more detail when it came to the window. And then also maybe put in some sort of tree or plants to kind of represent that appropriately here. And then as I kind of zoom in a little bit more into the retro bath, the wall is kind of pushed forward on the left here a little bit more versus our reference. Other than that, I would say it's a good attempt. Of course, there is some big differences in the two. I would say the retro bath kind of has more of a slight haziness to it, where ours is a little bit more vibrant. But of course, with the allotted time, I wanted to try to recreate this. But of course, the more you look at something, the more you can kind of pick out the small details and such. And so this is what we ended up with so far. Let me know what you guys think as far as this retro bathroom goes. If you just kind of like the overall feel of the retro bathroom, or if you have any questions or comments at all, feel free to shoot it down in the comment section. Other than that, that was pretty much it for Resculpted episode 2. I had a lot of fun with this one. It was, again, rather simple, but we had a lot of really cool things going on here. So hopefully this is fun to watch or you learned something. But I'm excited for episode 3 coming out. This one is going to be a lot of fun here, so I'm excited to show you guys episode 3. But that's pretty much it for the video. You guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.